lot of this stuff came from the thrift stores, and it's going to be thrift store priced again at the estate sale. Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go! One of your fellow viewers contacted me with a situation that she found herself in. She had a thrift store, she had inventory. She called and said, I'm moving, I've got to get rid of a bunch of stuff. Would you please come and take the things you think are the most collectible? And I said, absolutely. Such a sweet lady. I'm so glad I could do this for her. I'm here in my storehouse in Kentucky, and this is where I unloaded the things I had for her. Some of these are going to stay for a big sale I'm doing here at the end of June. I'm participating in the Highway 41 sale, which is a 150-mile highway sale from the Kentucky-Tennessee border near Clarksville all the way to the Indiana border at Evansville. Now the good news is this gal had a lot of cute things in her inventory. Let's see what there is and we'll have some fun. This little pressed carved box, it's not really carved, it's very thin wood that they're able to press and then it's sewn. This is European. These are Navajo sand paintings. The Navajo and I believe the Hopi both do these. These actually have signatures on the back of the makers, which is not always the case, so we'll actually be able to tell a little bit more about them. They look like the corn people, the Yay, Y-E-I. Now they still do this sort of thing and sell it in Albuquerque and Phoenix and Tucson and places like that, but these are older pieces and there is a collector market for them. I would expect the little ones to sell for about $8 or $10 and the larger for $15 to $20. The birds are nicely done. These are Plastic Fantastic, and they are by copyright 1967 by Sirocco. This is when Sirocco started to do the injected molded plastic in the 60s after having done the wood composite. Burwood bought them out and moved the injected molded technologies to them. This little vase is Sommerso Italian. It's a nice smoky color from about 1970. It's small. It could have a maker name on the bottom. I see some very faint little etching. You have to look really closely at these with a very strong loupe to be able to tell, because some of the signatures are so tiny. I had a Barovier piece that I sold for less than I should have, but the guy spent 2.5 hours trying to find the mark before he bought it, so I thought he earned it. And I still got $50 for something I paid $2 for. He said it was worth about $100, so he was happy. This vase is a Gans, and these were very popular in the 90s. Think about the 90s with these poppy colors in decorating and lots of faces everywhere and things that looked a little more animated. This was actually a lot of work to do because it's a multiple color glaze and they fire at different levels. So took a little while to get these down, but they were made back then. They're just starting to be collectible. And so I think it's an up-and-coming area. You can see the Denise Ford by Gans is the mark. And it's got the blonde lady on the other side. So depending what kind of a mood you're in, you can change your hair color. Or you can be a redhead. So I think this is really fun. And I think someone else will as well. They seem to be selling for about $30 now. They're kind of big and heavy to ship, so it makes sense to me that they're not more, but I have a hunch they will be in the future. This is Francoma also, the political mug. This one is the GOP from 1978. It's got the full Francoma mark on it. They did these from 1969 to 2001, from Nixon to Bush II, and they did a Gore Lieberman one because they weren't sure who was going to win that election, and they gave those out at the inaugurals as well. So there's 500 of those kicking around. They're very valuable now. These little walnut guys I just think are so much fun. This is bone, not ivory, so we can sell it anywhere. And this one says, life. Life is springing forth and has rhinestone eyes. Now, I know some other YouTubers are really wild about raku. I got this piece because I like Western Americana, and I saw this, the buffalo with the arrow. It's a stylized rendition based on Native American fetishes, and you can see on the back side. Because it's hollow, it does not have a maker name, so I do not know who did this. I'm going to have to do some research. But raku is starting to sell again. It's another thing from the late 80s, early 90s that's starting to catch on because people liked it then and they like it now. And then the fishy here, hand-painted. I just thought that was neat. It's from Boone, North Carolina. There is a small pottery company there that is making these things, and they typically have this. It's a very rough textured, it almost looks like canvas, the way they do the stoneware in the backing. I think that's an up-and-coming collectible. So I picked some things out of hers that are not super old, but are starting to be. Because again, this was thrift store merchandise, so she had a lot of newer and contemporary items, and my job was to go ferret out the vintage things that could sell for vintage value as much as possible. Another interesting, I like these graffito decoration where they carved into the surface. So it is brass, but they did a darker patina on the top of it and then carved back to reveal the brass. These are done in India. Look at the handwork involved in this. India, like everywhere else, is industrializing. There's going to come a time when they don't do this sort of thing anymore because there won't be anyone willing to work that inexpensively to do that amount of labor, and a machine can't really do it in the same manner. So this is another area I think could be future collectability. The Minnie Mouse, carved in wood. This is a neat looking piece. It's probably going to date back about 20 to 30 years. It's not as old as it looks, but it is cool. And also there are the picture frames, Mickey and Minnie. And these say Disney Japan. That means after about 1985. The Carnival glass piece back here, it's Indiana Glass's Great Pattern from about 1970. This is a wine cooler. Drinking wine and being wine connoisseurs is something that was adopted by the middle and upper middle classes in this country probably around 1980, 85. That became more of a thing. It's made in Italy and it's hand painted. And that makes it a pretty good piece. I thought this table lamp was pretty because it had these nice crystals and just this very soft, sweet applied porcelain with the flowers. So I went ahead and brought that for her. There's another sand painting with a Navajo wedding vase. A few little pieces of jewelry fell out of that picture when I turned it over, and like I say, I've got a lot of jewelry from her. I believe this one's silver, this one's Trifari with the little stones, and this one is just something cute that she got from Goodwill. And there'll be a lot of just cute wearable jewelry at this sale that I'm going to have because she gave me a lot and another client did too, so there's going to be a lot of costume jewelry. The painted and enameled spoons, including the slotted one here, are all from Eastern Europe. You see these in the Russian import shops a lot. And they seem to sell for between $6 and $12 each. Another little Delft blue piece here. And then some desk accessories. This nice fountain pen in the original stand from about 1960, back when fountain pens were still being used. It might even be 50s, looking at the deco shape to the nib. This is something that was found at a thrift store, but is probably worth about $15 to $18 to the right person. And then this one is commemorating Exxon Company in the USA. They changed from Enco or Esso, depending where you were. In 1972, they changed it to Exxon, and then by 1999, they had merged with Mobil. So this is commemorating their period of time where they were just Exxon. Couple more Francoma mugs. We've got the Democratic Donkey here, 1975, and the Republican Elephant, 1971. They did not do the Democratic Donkey the first few years because John Frank, who was the founder of Francoma, was an ardent Republican and he wouldn't allow it. After he died, his daughter said, you know, we need to be fair to both sides, and besides which, that was right during the middle of Watergate. This piece here, another casserole dish. You know, I didn't grab a lot of dinnerware, but this one again is Dansk, and it's Dansk Bistro. This was made in Portugal. Portugal made some really nice ceramics right around the 1990s, and that's why Dansk sourced from them. Dansk, I always thought was Danish, and it turns out that no, Dansk was formed by two Americans who were looking for things to import and found a Danish designer who they thought was really good. And so they had their things made in Denmark and France at first, but they've actually had his designs made all over the world. Beaded 1950s purse from Japan. That's probably a $15 or $20 item. And then this is a nice old tile. It's transferware. And it does not tell us where it was made, but my guess is England from the design. Typically when I see these, they more often are English with this aesthetic period design, and especially because of the motif in the corner with the English ivy. And then this thing is fairly contemporary, but it does have a nice hard stone carved handle. This is a Chinese mirror, hello. And it is more contemporary, but it does have some hard stone in it and a nice carved hard stone handle. They always have this break here, I think because they could be attached to belts and sashes that way. Now under the table here we have some cool stuff. The big oval insert will be useful to somebody, I'm sure. Door lights are something that are specific to a need, but they're expensive enough I thought it was worth trying to sell for her. Behind the door light, this is Minnie, and these are little knobs. All sorts of little knobs. This is a hardware store display, and I see where one was taken off by somebody, but there are cool ones. This is not wildly old. There's lizards, and there's bears, and there's fish, and there's a boat, and there's shells, and this one has fruit and mushrooms and all sorts of fun stuff. I just thought that was a neat display, and I figured that they were interesting enough that somebody could find a use for these, repurpose them, or, believe it or not, there are people collecting old hardware store displays, so it might just stay the way it is. A more contemporary stained glass lamp, I feel like I have the base. I do believe that there's a little bit more to unpack from this estate, but I'm going to show you everything we have out now, because honestly, I don't have any room to work until we start moving some of this stuff. So help! This is signed Kalazi. I do not believe that's a listed artist, but it is an attractive, sweet farm scene, and I'm in farm country, and I know there's some YouTubers who like this sort of painting, so I figured somebody's going to enjoy that. And then the other one she had that's original art is this oil painting with people splashing in the surf, and I thought that was fun. I just sold something similar. Again, this is not listed, but I just sold something similar for about $50. So even just as decorative items, art is always something to take a look for, because if people like it, they like it. And it doesn't matter if it's necessarily a great master or not. I get asked a lot about Norataki china, a lot. I probably get a call every week saying, I have a set of Norataki china that I want to sell. And I say, oh dear, there's no one in the family who will take it, because it's generally a hard sell, unless it's certain patterns and primarily before World War II. And that's why I decided to give this set a try. This is Norataki's Yale pattern. And this is pre-World War II, and it's really kind of cute. It reminds me of the way that pajamas used to be printed. You can see on the back it's got the Norataki M mark in green. So this came from the green factory. There was the red factory and the green factory. And the green factory would have done the transferware and more simple pieces like this. The red factory did mainly the hand-painted, where in the case of their dinnerware, azalea is the best known of the hand-painted patterns from before the war. But there's a whole box of this, and it's got platters and casseroles and cream and sugar and serving pieces. I think there's a set for either 6 or 8 in here, so we're going to give this a try. There does seem to be some demand for this pattern. We'll see if we can find those people who like this to come out and buy it either in parts or the entire set. A couple of more neat vintage things that came out of this group. I think this is really fun the way they did this. The board is new, but all of these bottle caps are old. These are 1950s and 60s. You've got Sundrop, Sunrise, quinine water, and a nice Star X bottle opener in the middle of it. Sarsaparilla, Big Cream Chief. So I think that's just a neat display, and someone will enjoy that. I imagine it'll sell for about $15 to $20. And then there's this. This is a very nice, great pattern Carnival glass bowl, and this is an early one. This is right around 1910. You can see this one is green on the bottom. You never know what the color of the glass is till you look at the bottom. And then it's got good color in it. See how it goes from golds to greens to purples? That's what you want in Carnival glass. You don't want something that's a sick glass where it's been washed with ammonia or something that takes that color away. Definitely want that rainbow effect of colors. That is what early Carnival glass is all about. So it's a fairly popular and relatively common pattern, but it's a cute piece, I imagine, worth about 15 to 20 these days. And then I like this kitty cat tile. This is more contemporary when you see these little ones with the crystal and glaze inside a wider one, especially with the frieze of, in this case, 3 blind mice underneath the cat. They did make things that look sort of like this in the old days, but that particular combination of elements, the small center, the sparkly finish from the crystal and glaze, and then another thing related to the theme of the first, that's going to be more contemporary. As you can see looking on the back, this was by a studio artist named Michael Cohen. So we will look to see if there's a secondary market for his stuff, because I think this one's nice. So while I'm thinking about it, please click that bell to be notified of future videos. You'll have to hit subscribe if you haven't already, because that's how you can click the bell. You can find out more about memberships by clicking join up above or looking for the link in the description. There are some new member perks, and some of the things that I got from Louisiana, a few of the best things I'm putting aside for the once a month extra bonus video that level 2 members get to see first, where I list everything on eBay and it drops live while they're watching. So you can check out the information about that by hitting the join button up above or looking for the link to memberships in the description. Now let's get back to this video, because there's a lot more to show you. This is a silent butler, and other people just say crumb brush, but you would use this piece here to scrape the crumbs off the table into this piece here, and then quietly walk away with them so you did not embarrass your guests. This is made in Japan. It's got a 1930s Japanese mark. I think it's very pretty with the poppies, and even though it's very lightweight, it's well cast. And I'm seeing people interested in these. Again, I would think, again, $15 to $20 is a likely price. And then there's a bunch of Mexican molas on top of it. So along with a whole bunch of jewelry that I have to sort through, there were some other accessories, particularly purses and hats. The cigar box purse was cute. It's fairly contemporary, but I just thought it was neat. There's a Dumi and Burke. There's a Mikowski. In fact, there's some other ones in another box, I believe, that are Mikowski. This is Whiting and Davis. You can kind of tell by the mesh and the colors. That one's really fun. And there's a Coach in here as well, so there's some decent purses. The hats are good old church lady hats. Very floral, very springy, and of course perfect for a guy with a mustache and a goatee. Looks like I'm ready for the queen and cucumber sandwiches. Here's the big old super deluxe. These are funny, and you know, people like them for costume and dress up and things like that, and oh my, I don't know how you can see past that. She had some neat little crowns and tiaras. These were all worn at Mardi Gras in New Orleans. And then we got a couple of this style as well. So there's some fun stuff in this. It's a nice group of merchandise. I'm really glad to be able to help her this way. Well, I'm advertising 2 tables full of costume jewelry at this estate sale. Almost all of it came from the estate in Louisiana, which means almost all of it was thrifted. She was a big Goodwill shopper, so we're going to have quite a variety. Some of the most interesting stuff I probably already have in trays, but I'm just going to give you a quick once-over here. Again, most of this is not vintage. There are a few vintage pieces mixed in. This is a neat pseudo squash blossom. They're not real, but they are probably by the Goldette company. Goldette did a lot of fake squash blossom amongst other things. There was even more. We've got all this, which I already have sorted into trays. The reason I do it in these little trays and egg cartons and things is that I am putting a lot of these outside on the porch where our cashier can help watch and people can look freely and not be in the way of everyone else in the house. This entire bag is Betsy Johnson here. And so this is layered like 4 deep, but I have everything in bags and little trays, and that way we can just put it out really quickly and also get it put in really quickly at the end of the day because we can't leave it out overnight. There is an entire trunk full of costume jewelry in there. And then there's one last shelf. This was the box stuff and things that were easy to bring just the way they were. It is another clown. It looks like that. But this one's a Yadro clown, and it's in the original box. And that's a nice thing to have. People do like the original boxes with Yadro. If it's worth something without the box, it's going to be worth a bit more with the box. Yadro collectors really like to have those. This is Department 56, the Humpty Dumpty teapot. It looks like that, but in bright colors. The disco ball wall clock, I just had to, I don't know why. Couple of leather-clad horses, and some more fun Marcia of California, another spatter glaze. Some fused glass. There were a couple of pieces of fire and light, which I put aside because we know there's someone out in YouTube land who knows and loves that stuff. This is the top half of a Viking glass fairy lamp shaped like an owl. I will be looking for the bottom. You're more likely to find the bottom than the top because the tops are what got knocked off and broken. So I think I have a chance of making that whole again. A Mikasa bottle stopper. Mikasa is a good brand that really doesn't seem to be as collected as I think it should be, but it will eventually. Here's a 1970s Betty Crocker. It's the recipe box with all the different things you could want. Seasonal favorites, American classics. There's a turkey. Budget casseroles. Look at that great dinnerware they're using. So that's going to be fun for somebody. I think they sell for about $15. A larger Pyrex fridge dish. A nice older ceramic rolling pin that you put the water in to keep things cold so that it doesn't stick to the rolling pin. It's a nice device. So why is silverware called silverware? Well, silver was a less expensive metal than gold, so typically for the people who could afford it back in the old days, you got silver. In the 1700s and 1800s, a lot of people just carved utensils and ate off a wooden fork that they made themselves. But then it turned into the industrial age and we started to be able to buy this stuff already done. And by the 1960s, people were saying, well, why not gold? So these brass sets were made in Thailand. And a lot of them came to the United States in the 60s and early 70s because people who were stationed in the Vietnam War brought them over because they were unusual. A lot of people got them as presents. I am surprised how many of them look just like this, where they're in the original box and have never been used. But this looks like a set that could be used, and because it's in the original wrappers, even though it's 50 years old, the box is not in the greatest shape. But the pieces are really immaculate and perfect because they've never been out of this box. So this is an area people are starting to like again because there is a move towards brass and gold and away from chrome and silver right now, it seems, in terms of interior decorating, partly because a lot of the chrome and silver things have already gone into collections. This set, I think, could be very serviceable to somebody, and it has a nice modernist design. This was too big to show without unfolding it, but it's in great shape. I don't see any holes or stains. It's a nice chenille throw, and it is an older one. I believe this is a 1950s version. It's got the nice flower in the middle. It's a larger size. This would have been for a full bed at the time. A lot of people use these as queen and king toppers now because a lot of the older chenille wasn't made in king and queen sizes. But it's a pretty one, and this definitely should sell. I usually get about $40 to $50 for these. Wanted to take a break and talk to you a little bit about pricing. People ask me, how do you price in a situation like this? You've got someone who has a real need to sell, but you also have taken it away, so you have a little bit of time to breathe and think about how we get a decent price instead of just giveaway. And yet at the same time, we're motivated sellers. The client needs to move. If I had had time to go back, I would have picked up another van load of recent vintage and contemporary things because she had lots of those as well. And some of them were pretty good, and some of you resellers would do well on them. Unfortunately, she's 7 hours away, and one trip was all I could do, so we focused on the antiques and vintage. How do we price the antiques and vintage? Well, I was told years and years ago by a gal who'd been in the business for a really long time, and she said, if you are in a mall or a collective, or nowadays on eBay, you better have the best one, the cheapest one, or the only one. So we're going to price it that way. A lot of this stuff is nice, but it's things that you see fairly frequently. And so if they are going to be sold online, we're going to price at the bottom of where they're selling recently, because we know we're not the only one. If we have the best one or the only one, for instance, certain things that are here are going to go to my antique mall, and if I don't see anything else like it in the store, I'm going to price it like that because it will be the one that people will find when they go to that particular location. That is a reason, by the way, to have real-world locations as well as online, because the pricing varies and because you're isolating your stuff in a place where it doesn't have as much competition as it does online, and you can sell larger items without taking a big hit on shipping every time. The other pricing level is estate sale pricing, and we will price the things that are not vintage and not antique at about 1/3 of what they sell for retail new if they're in good condition, particularly if they're still in the original boxes, because that seems to be the sweet spot to sell a lot of stuff at an estate sale. It's reasonable enough for people to make money, it's reasonable enough for resellers to buy, but you're not giving them all the profit. And I do have a client and a responsibility to the client. The estate sale prep is going pretty well. I will be ready by the time the sale starts on Friday. And it is a true estate sale, but it's from 3 estates, not just one. A lot of this stuff came from the thrift stores, and it's going to be thrift store priced again at the estate sale. So yes, you can see it is pretty packed in here. This is the front room. There's another room. There are things on the porch. Let's do some close-ups because I don't know how you would see in all this texture, but there is a variety here in addition to the green bike, which will be outside for the sale. So in front here we've got fox prints from the 1920s and 30s, the Bob Newhart desk phone that has the lid that shuts from the 70s, a 60s powder blue jar, which I think is nice. I decided to put these rattan coffee tables and the Lane laminate table in the sale because honestly, I got them for good prices and I need something to put merchandise on for this. A couple of limited edition prints by Gilbert from the 1970s. One is the eagle and one is the owls. It's time to let those go. They're going to be priced at about 1/3 of what they were priced when I had them at the antique store for the customer, because that consignment needs to go. This nice 1920s or 30s print in the original frame is going to be priced at $10. I know that some of you folks saw the video where I got these church lights. I got so many that I'm going to let a couple go if anyone wants them. And of course, the chip and dip came from the Louisiana estate. Got a neat piece of Blanco back there, some moon and stars, various decanters. The Lane laminate table also came from Louisiana. It's got that nice dovetailed edge. Whole planter with the pheasant in a nice orange Hager bowl and some cool 60s looking dresser boxes. These are salt and pepper shakers. We have some older vintage ones in the other room as well. And look at the dog, such a great face. That's going to date back to about 1910. Cranberry glass cut to clear. The windmill planter is Shawnee. You'll see a lot of dresser and boudoir items, a lot of miniature perfumes, some purses. I've got selection of all of those, but what I really have, mostly from the Louisiana estate, is just a ton of costume jewelry. So the folks who come for that sort of thing, I think, are going to be very pleased with what they see because there's going to be a big selection. More purses, records here. Some hankies, including Washington crossing the Delaware. and a couple of others that had some sorts of logos and designs on them. Some of them are embroidered, so it's nice to have those. They're cute. The Peacock Tray is from the 1920s. Nice cocktail service there. A lot of figurines, a lot of Franklin Mint eggs from the estate in Florida, as well as their butterflies. Some Andrea by Sadek. There's bird figures. You know, a lot of these are selling for $20 and $25 on the computer. We're going to have prices for $5 and $6 and $8. So I think we're going to sell a lot of this stuff. Behind here is going to be a big spread of paper ephemera. We just started working on this today under the centrifuge. We do have some things that are not antique and vintage because it is an estate sale, so we did get other things in these hauls. I have piles and piles of hubcaps which are going out on the lawn during the sale. Old 1967 Corvair manuals. All of this paper ephemera is going to be $1 each. There's tons of old sheet music. We'll do a little more on the old Saturday Evening Posts and some of these botanical prints, but probably not more than about $5 each. My goal is to price these things inexpensively because I have clients in 3 other states who would like to send more things, and I need to clear this stuff out so that I can help other people and keep moving up as far as the quality of the merchandise that we have here. Did come across a number of lighters, including some Zippo in here, and a couple of hip flasks. Also came up with a pipe stand full of pipes, which is nice. I am finding that there are collectors for pipes again. This came from the Louisiana house. Bunch of old advertising novelties in ashtrays, including the Travelodge Bear. That looks like right about 1960. Old Lucky Strike tin. Nice rhombic bottle. Rhombic is a pattern from the late 1920s, and this is cast in its image, and it is a very collectible pattern. The deco people really love it. This is unusual because this is a Budweiser light-up sign from about 1970, and it's when we start seeing realistic depictions of black people in the media. And it does work. It's got a chip or two on the outside, but the fact that it's in working order is what's really important. Then we go to camera land. Boy, do we have the cameras, and some pictures too. Lovely flapper gal on the wall here in the canted corner frame. Some real photos. That's going to be all of $10. This one is a Civil War print by John Philip Strain, who is renowned as a Civil War artist, and that one will be $100 because they sell for about $350 online. So we really are pricing this for estate purposes. The point is to sell this stuff. And we have a lot of vintage cameras as old as the 1930s here, and then as far up as the 1980s and 90s. So we've got single lens reflex, we've got a couple of stereo cameras, we've got a couple of old movie cameras, the Graflex film pack adapter, and a lot of lenses. This is a really big collection, and I would think that for somebody who knows cameras and knows lenses and likes to shoot, that there would be something for them here because there's just such a variety. We have a Cora Mandel screen. This will open into 4 parts and has a nice design on it. A nice Japanese scroll or two behind it, which will hang somewhere where we can see it. The Nikon microscope is a good piece, even though it's more contemporary. That should sell. Then more cameras. We have got cameras, flat plates for people who do that kind of photography. This big box is the Pacemaker graphic, and it's got all the little pieces and components and accessories. Also have some newer cameras. So cameras are us. And another shelf here, the Konica with the huge lens is going to be a little bit more desirable and price higher, I'm sure. Most of these are going to be about $10 to $15 each for the sale. Again, we are looking at estate sale prices. I need to be able to sell these to resellers who can move this kind of volume. I cannot take all of this on and get it all done. with everything else going on, and that is why we have estate sales. These folks couldn't sell where they were, so they had a problem, and I took on their problem, and now my problem is I've got to get it gone. This is a South American map, of course, as you can see, 1950s or 60s. Nice pull down. These sell for about $80 to $90 now. We'll have a price around $40 on this one. This one's signed by Tom Bradley, who was the mayor of Los Angeles. A lot of fun toys and games. Almost everything you see here is going to be $1. Yes, just $1. Even the HO trestle set, even the dolls. Most of these games, lie detector will be a little more because it works and it's hard to find, but it'll still be under $10, and they sell for about $25 online from what I can tell. There's the old Knight Rider game out of the 80s. Some of these are electronic games like Speak and Spell and World Wizard. So I suspect that some resellers are going to have some fun here because, again, we are pricing this stuff to go. A little bit of beer stuff, cocktail culture stuff. And then seafaring stuff. The painting just came from the house in Louisiana. Books, including some older children's. I love the pelican print. And these two movie posters that need framing and glass, I decided it was better to sell them here at the estate sale. We've got Yul Brynner in Kings of the Sun and Sinbad in the Eye of the Tiger. They need to go to people who can get them framed and taken care of the way that I have not had a chance to do. This is a limited edition here. And this is a great old frame. Again, we're going to price these at about $15, so just the frame is worth more than that. Someone should be very happy. Some nice brass pieces. I think these Chinese brass pieces on the outside are attractive, and then the middle one is a humidor for tobacco. All the mirrors and shelves and little pieces of furniture you see are also for sale. And this is Royal Crown Derby. The frog is one of their better looking pieces. These were paperweights. They did a lot of different animals. They sell for about $45 to $65 typically. We'll price that around $20. Now, one of the other estates had a lot of Native American. There's basketry, there's stone tools. I like this table. It needs some refinishing on the top or maybe a collage or something, but it's a neat wagon wheel table out of the 60s. I remember Sears used to sell those. Probably the most interesting furniture they had. Francoma with the Cherokee alphabet and also the Ada clay big casserole there. That should go and does go for about $35 to $40 online. So we'll be pricing it about $15 here. There should be room for someone on that. A couple of R.C. Gorman prints and a neat bottle with most of its label and a turkey tail. Lots of little cigar linens. There's horse brasses. There's a little bit of Native American pottery. These fun tumblers from Colorado from the 1950s. There's a set of 4. And a good book by Edward Curtis, who did so much of the illustration of Native American art and the Native Americans themselves. As a photographer back around 1910, he really preserved a lot of the images so that we did not lose what people actually looked like before there was more assimilation. Lots of baskets, as you can see, and lots more over here. Some people buy these because they collect them, and some just want them to put into a display. And you could do either. We're going to price them so that they'll be affordable for either. Again, a lot of these are going to be little pieces as low as $10 and less, and larger pieces maybe in a $15 range. The fringed boots here are really cool because they've got first knives in the little side pockets in both of the boots. Some Northwest native carving, and then some Kentucky-made folk art horses here. So just some really fun stuff. You know, some of it's a little worn and dilapidated, but that is part of its genuineness. We have one Wedgwood Jasperware biscuit jar for English tea. Some nice crystal candlesticks, and then this is Lefton with the roses here. Several of the Lenox and I believe Gorham as well, ladies, for sale. And these we're going to price around $15 each, and they can sell for as much as $45. So I hope the resellers come out because there are some bargains for them here. This is really an estate sale. I've got this stuff here to move. I heard the other night another YouTuber saying that, oh, I never can find Weller at a price I can afford. Well, this piece of Weller is going to be $9 at the estate sale. So that should be affordable for someone. The Cardinal is Andrea by Sadek. Again, we'll price probably in the $12 range. They sell for $25 to $30. This wall pocket, which we'll price under $10, is Abingdon from Illinois. They're the ones, it's very hard to see the mark on this one because it did not come through. Usually they're an ink stamp, but I've had it marked before, and they're the company that made bathroom fixtures back in that time. This is a Japanese slot machine. You could be the first on your block to own one. They're really cool actually, and they sell for as much as $250 to $300 online. We're going to have this one priced, I believe, at $100. Advertising clock for Benson and Hedges. Leopard is a New Zealand beer, so that'll be fun for someone to have in their bar. And then you'll notice we have vintage clothes hanging in various places around here. They're all going to be priced about $5 each, even the lovely bridal gown. A couple of film projectors. Some of these old film projectors, like the one in the blue case there, they're selling for up to $100 online. We're going to price this one about $20 and see how that does. Tea leaf ironstone. Some of this is over a century and a half old. Those little pieces will only be $5 each. There's a striking Royal Copley. And then we've got Francoma Christmas plates and the bicentennial plates. A lot of those are only going to be $2 or $3 each, folks. So there should be room for resellers too. And then various lace and sewn bits, christening gowns. This is something for the oddities group. This was done by a Florida student of a pottery instructor who I'm selling for. These are just neat. I love these colors and these designs I remember from the early 90s. The magenta phone would be about concurrent with that. There's several of these European prints with carriages and buildings. And then in front here, we've got this set, which is Shenango, and Peter Terrace is the designer. Not someone as well known as Ben Seibel and some of the other dinnerware designers like Russell Wright, but really a neat pattern, and I like the use of the wood with the ceramic. It gives it a real flavor. I just think it's neat. The compote is Cowan pottery. We have some original oil paintings as well, mainly traditional. Some are artist signed. So there's some variety here, that's for certain. Some cranberry glass here. Those are Fenton, both the shade and the pitcher. And then this is Royal Gouda, or Gouda. It has just the smallest rough spot on the bottom, but it's a lovely vase. So this room here is the kitchen, and it's mainly kitchen stuff, as you can imagine. Makes sense. The orange wine goblets, or water goblets, I guess they actually are, I thought were so much fun. And there's a 50s picnic set in there. These Fire King mugs that you'll recognize with the vegetable pattern from the late 70s, and these 60s era red and black brick looking placemats. I think those are neat. 1950s cigarette advertising sign, and we're even selling the quilt racks here. We've got linens on 3 racks. We've got that one. We have this one with blankets and afghans and such, and then this one in the back has a lot of our lace and doilies and things. A lot of these are going to be $1 a piece. The Afghans, I think, are going to be in the $10 range. Even this great curtain fabric will be priced inexpensively. There's a dinette set hiding under there. We've got a corner shelf and then a narrow cabinet with a shelf unit that hangs underneath and a couple of hoop back chairs. So there is a little bit of furniture here as well. And of course, because it's an estate, we did end up with some newer things. These are Pampered Chef. I think they sell for 10 a piece. Some resellers going to get them for a couple dollars. Same with the Heinz and Company. Same with this neat Franciscan seascapes. Sculptured seascapes. That's such a neat pattern. The 1950s breakfast newspaper holder is fun. And then we've got elegant glass and china. and some neat old frames like the one with that gal in it. And this is a fun grouping of some uranium glass, green depression, as well as pink depression, yellow depression, a nice set of Syracuse china, and Oul pottery, batter pitcher in good condition. And then you see the box in the back there. The box actually goes to this picnic set, which folds all the way down into that box. It's out of the 1960s, and there's a picnic basket for you to take with it. There are early 1900s copper pieces, some 1930s Japanese cottage ware, hour plates and Tupperware and kitchen tins, a whole stack of Franciscan apple, $20 for all of the Franciscan apple. I know that some of these dinnerware patterns don't sell as fast as they used to, but for $20 you can make money all day long on that set. I am pricing these things for resellers to be able to take them and make money. I have some mirrors, the cappuccino maker, neat looking Art Deco salad set, and a nice 1970s stainless flatware set as well. There are people buying these stainless sets. I think that'll sell for somewhere around $20 with the box. There's some other Victorian flatware as well. Corningware, and then the Coca-Cola signs are going to be inexpensive. We're probably looking at whopping $30 on the big one and maybe $20 on the small one, which these days is pretty good. Signs have gone kind of crazy, as we know. These are Kitchen Craft, which is made by Homer Laughlin. It is part of the Fiesta line, but it should say Kitchen Craft on the bottom, and they had different transfers. Sometimes they don't say anything, but you can see the concentric rings. The old 1950s milk crate and the 50s or 60s fountain squirters are neat, as is the Oster beehive. We've got some Hall china, we've got some Luray china, we have Swedish painted birds, we have the old bottle convention bottles, antique bourbon. So somewhere in all of this, I think people who come to this sale are going to find something fun and go home and be happy and sell it online and make money, or put it in their collection and feel like they got a bargain. Well, thank you for coming with me and looking at the rest of the haul from the Goodwill Hoard in Louisiana. Thank you also for taking this preview of this weekend's estate sale with me. It is part of the Highway 41 sale. There will be sales all the way from Henderson, Kentucky to the Kentucky-Tennessee border. This happens the last weekend of June every year. So come on out and join me if you're at all able. And if not, well, I hope to see you somewhere else in my travels. I'm George the Antique Nomad at the social media that you see here. See y'all soon. Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media daily posts and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.